Howdy, my name is Cathy Hill and I'm a Master Naturalist volunteer with the Highland Lakes chapter in the Texas Hill Country. Today our subject is trees. So, why do we both like and need trees? Well, like all plants, trees give us oxygen, but they do so much more. Now, if I was doing this with a live audience, I would ask them to tell me a few things that we use trees for. But since you're not there, I'm going to have to help you out with that. Well, we use trees for landscapes. We like to be under them in the shade. We like to climb them, or at least when you're young. And we like to put tree houses and hang a swing. Trees also produce food for us to eat. Many of our fruits grow on trees. Apples, oranges, peaches, plums. Also nuts like pecans and walnuts. Also, we get syrup from maple trees. Some of the spices that we use in cooking come from trees, like cinnamon. And even some of our medicine, like aspirin, come from tree products. And then, once a tree has been harvested, we use the wood from that tree for lumber and building things. Look around you where you are. See all the things that are made out of wood. Your furniture, your floors, your doors, your cabinets in your house. Go outside, you might see picnic tables or a wooden swing. Also, lots of smaller things. Think of a toothpick or a clothespin or matches. Those are all made from wood. Also, we make some toys from wood. Picture frames. The list could just go on and on and on. Also, in school, your paper, your pencils, cardboard, rulers, those are all made from wood as well. Our animal friends use trees too, of course. Birds, like these guys, build their nests in trees. Or like the owls, they find a hollow cavity to build a tree. Woodpeckers even hunt for their food in trees and can even peck a hole big enough to live in. Other animals, like foxes and raccoons, can live in a hollow in a tree or in a hollow log that's on the ground. Lizards are frequently found climbing in trees. They may be looking for their dinner. Insects and spiders can build their nests in trees or drink sap from the tree. But what are these other things you say? How does a frog live in a tree? Unless it's a tree frog, of course. Or a fish and a turtle? How many times have you seen a turtle or a frog crawl up on a hollow log that's floating out in the water? And catfish even lay their eggs in hollow logs. So animals too use trees, and trees benefit from the animals because they'll eat the seeds and then spread those seeds all over the place and more trees come up. Beavers even use trees to build their dams and their lodges. And then we mustn't forget that some animals eat the leaves, the bark, the sap. They'll eat the nectar from the flowers. They use every part of the tree in their daily life. So, what is a tree? Well, a tree is a tall, woody plant that has many parts. The roots are below the ground, and they anchor the tree in place for like when the wind blows. They also suck up the water and nutrients from the ground and take it up into the tree, up into the trunk, which is the sturdy part of the tree, the woody part, and there are lots of vessels inside the tree that continue to move those water and nutrients up through the tree. It is covered by bark, which protects the inside of the tree from things on the outside. The entire upper portion of the tree is called the crown. In some trees it's very wide, and some it is not. It is composed of the branches, which also transport nutrients up into the leaves. Now the leaves are very important. Why? Because they are the food manufacturer for the tree. They bring in sunlight and carbon dioxide and water. and they make food inside those leaves, whether it's a little leaf or a big leaf. This process is called photosynthesis. That's a big word, but very important. Leaves are the breathing mechanism for the tree. They bring in carbon dioxide and they give off that very important oxygen that we need. Trees could not live without their leaves. Leaves come in many shapes, sizes, and textures. Leaves are often used to identify what type of tree it is. Trees that lose their leaves in the fall are called deciduous trees. Trees which stay green all year are called evergreen trees. They may lose some leaves during the year, but all winter long, all year long, they are always green. That's why they're called evergreen. Trees grow from the inside out. If a tree was cut down, you could see these rings on the tree cut. Now, you're not going to want to cut a tree down just to see how old it is, but if one is cut down, you can figure out how old it is by the number of rings. As a tree grows, the inside part tends to die out and sometimes will even be hollow. The live part of the tree is on the outside. Now that we've discussed what a tree is and its parts, we're going to talk about some of the different trees that live here in Texas. I know you all know that the bluebonnet is the state flower of Texas, but did you know we have a state tree too? What is this little thing called? That's right, it's a pecan. The pecan is our state tree. This is what their leaves look like. They're long and kind of curved, and they have some little serrated edges. And this is where their seed is. And not all pecans are the same size. Pecan trees can live up to 300 years old and up to 100 feet tall. They are very common across many parts of Texas. And of course, pecans are good to eat too. The pecan is the state nut of Texas, and the pecan pie is the state pie, best when cooked with Texas pecans and by a Texan cook. One of the type of oak trees that live here in Texas is the live oak tree. They have very small, simple leaves, and their acorns look like probably the acorns you're used to seeing. They're called live oak trees because they are an evergreen oak tree. Now that's different than what I said about most evergreen trees being like pine trees. But these do keep green leaves on their tree all year long, even though they are also continuously dropping leaves and growing new ones. If you have one in your backyard, you know this is true. Live oak trees can live a very long time. Hundreds of years, and they get very big. Their crown is usually bigger than they are tall. This is the Goose Island big oak tree that lives in Goose Island State Park. It's down near the coast. It is 44 feet tall, but the crown is almost 90 feet across. From one side to the other, the trunk is 15 feet wide. And the circumference, meaning the way all the way around the trunk, is 35 feet. Now I measured my arm span. It's about 5 feet wide. That means it would take 7 people my size to go all the way around that tree holding hands. That is a big tree.
And how old is it?
Oh, that's right. I said it was very old. They think it's over 1,100 years old. It's lived through a lot of things down on the coast, fires and storms, and it survived Hurricane Harvey a few years ago, even though lesser trees near it blew down. But there are other oak trees that live in Texas as well. One of them is called the post oak tree. See how different its leaves are, even though its acorns look very much like the live oak tree. It's called the post oak tree because it has very strong wood that are used to make fence posts with. Here is another oak tree, and it's called the red oak tree. It has very different shaped leaves that turn a beautiful shade of red in the fall before they fall off. And then there's this one. Look at the size of those leaves. They're really big. But I bet what you really noticed was look at the size of that acorn. And here I have another one too. This is called the bur oak because someone thought it looked like a giant burr. All oak trees are hardwood trees and can be used for making furniture and floors and buildings, and they also make good firewood. Another tree that grows here in central Texas and in other parts of Texas as well is the American sycamore tree. They have very variable shaped leaves even on the same tree. They like a lot of water, so they frequently live near water like a lake or a river. The more water they get, the bigger their leaves get. These are some that were in my backyard. But this is a leaf from one that grows closer to Houston, where they get more rain. Their seed pods are kind of cool. It looks like a giant ball, but when it dries out and the wind blows, all these little pieces will blow in the air and spread their seeds all over. And that's a mesquite tree. And here's what the leaves look like closer up. Very small and thin. But I wouldn't want to climb in this tree. Look at those thorns. And this is what their seed pod looks like. Now a lot of people don't like this tree because they think it sucks up too much of the moisture, and it tends to be a little bit invasive in the way it grows, but it is a native tree. Bees also like the nectar from the mesquite tree, and mesquite honey is very tasty. And we like to use the mesquite wood when we barbecue. Another tree that grows quite frequently here in the central Texas area is the hackberry tree. They have very small, heavily veined leaves and small little berries that the birds like to eat and then spread them all over the yard. I know they pop up in my yard all the time like weeds. This very common evergreen, and yes, this is an evergreen, it stays green all year long. The real name is ash juniper, but just about everybody calls it cedar trees. It's not a very well-loved tree, even though it is a native. One of the reasons is because it grows rather aggressively, but also in the late winter, it produces pollen that blows in the wind, and many people are allergic to it. Makes them sneeze, and they say they have cedar fever. Its seeds are in these tiny little cone-like structures. The ash juniper has peeling red bark, which the golden cheek warbler uses in making its nest. And lastly, for our native trees, one more evergreen. It doesn't grow that much around here, but these needles and this pine cone are from the loblolly pine. You'll find them a lot more often in East Texas. All these trees that I've shown you so far are native to Texas, meaning they grow here and are not from outside the United States or some other country. But there are two trees that grow very frequently here that did come from out of country. They were brought in purely to be decorative or just be used in the landscaping. However, these non-native trees can tend to be invasive because they spread and crowd out the native trees. Two of the ones that are most often found are the Chinese tallow tree, and this is what their leaves look like and their little berries. And the other is the China berry tree, and that's what their seeds like. Not a bad looking tree, and they do have blooms on them, but we really don't want them growing here because they will crowd out the other trees, and the birds really don't like eating their seeds. So when you go outside today, look around you. See if you recognize any of the trees in your yard or outside your school or in a park. And what I want you to remember most of all, nature lovers are called tree huggers. So go out there and give a tree a big hug.